News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moscow.
Karen, we begin with escalation in the war between the U.S. and Iran. The U.S. military says it intercepted a surprise Iranian ballistic missile attack on its bases in the Middle East. The U.S. and Saudi Arabia struck back, hitting Tehran-backed militias in Iraq. That's after the U.S. says Iran directed 30 drone attacks against its forces over the past few days. Bloomberg White House correspondent Jeff Mason says all this has brought a relative calm in the region to an end.
President Trump setting a much more positive tone, or at least a sort of cautious wait-and-see tone over the last few days. And that would seem to have now changed. And if past his prologue, President Trump does not react well to attacks from Iran, particularly when he believes that there was some kind of an agreement or on a pause or on a ceasefire, which there wasn't necessarily over the last few days, but it did seem like both sides were at least tacitly agreeing to hold back.
And Bloomberg's Jeff Mason adds talks between Iran and Oman to get traffic or more of it through the Strait of Hormuz seem to have faltered.
And oil, Nathan, is surging on the latest developments in Iran. Brent, it is up more than 3.5% at $87.06 a barrel. This after its biggest three-day decline since April of 2020. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps claims to have hit and halted 3 tankers without saying where those strikes took place.
And Karen, the escalation follows a meeting between President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. Netanyahu called it, quote, one of the best meetings that we've had. Still, the Israeli leader told Fox News he remains skeptical of any potential deal with Iran.
I'm skeptical about the deal, and I say it openly, but the only way it would be achieved is if Iran understood these various factions. I think they're not ideological factions as much as they differ on the assessment of how tough we are.
And along with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, President Trump also met with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The White House called both discussions positive and productive.
Nathan, we also heard from former Vice President Mike Pence. He spoke with Bloomberg's Balance of Power about the prospect for diplomacy with Iran.
Whoever it is that's in charge of Iran on any given day to finally come to the table and be willing to accept our conditions, which is abandon and dismantle their nuclear weapons program, ballistic missiles, end support for terrorism, and restore freedom of navigation in the Strait.
Former Vice President Mike Pence also praised the life and foreign policy legacy of former Senator Lindsey Graham in discussion with our Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lines on Bloomberg's Balance of Power. Get the full conversation on our video hub at Bloomberg.com and the Bloomberg Business app.
Well, on Capitol Hill, Karen, legislation that would allow President Trump to impose more restrictions on major buyers of Russian energy and Iran has received overwhelming bipartisan support in the Senate. The bill would extend penalties on Iran and empower the president to target the top 5 buyers of Russian crude and natural gas with tariffs. Connecticut Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal spoke in support of the bill.
This bill says to Vladimir Putin, your days of war are numbered. You are on the losing side. Better to come to the table now.
While Connecticut Democrat Richard Blumenthal was supportive, some other Democratic lawmakers are warning that the legislation could be used by the president as a legal justification for broad new tariffs.
Well, also happening in the Senate, Nathan, Jay Clayton was confirmed as Director of National Intelligence by a vote of 51-47, replacing Interim Director Bill Pulte. The former top federal prosecutor in Manhattan will lead DNI, which has seen staff reductions under Pulte. At his confirmation hearing, Clayton repeatedly declined to say if Joe Biden won the 2020 election, raising concerns over whether he would contradict the president in his new position.
And today on Capitol Hill, Karen, Dr. Anthony Fauci returns. He's set to appear before the Senate Homeland Security Committee after Senator Rand Paul released Fauci's pandemic diary. We get more from Bloomberg's Amy Morris in Washington.
Homeland Security Chairman Rand Paul has publicly clashed with Fauci over whether Fauci's agency could have funded research that could produce a pandemic pathogen. This past weekend, the New York Times reports Senator Paul released Fauci's diary entries in which Fauci mused about the virus's origins. Paul claims Fauci lied to Congress about whether the virus leaked from a laboratory. Fauci has said he is open to the idea of a lab leak, but he believes the virus was natural in origin. In Washington, Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
All right, Amy, thank you. We turn to the economy now, and traders are watching whether the Federal Reserve will change interest rates in response to recent inflation data and geopolitical activity. And Bloomberg's Michael McKee has a preview.
For the first time this year, a Fed meeting is live, which means there is a chance they might change the nation's benchmark lending rate. Investors see about a 40% chance of a rate increase. The argument is inflation has been above the Fed's 2% target for 5 years, and the resumption of fighting in Iran is pushing up energy prices again. Proponents say a hike would build credibility for new Chairman Kevin Warsh and, at the same time, lower long-term rates. Economists, however, are almost unanimous in saying it won't happen. They point to the benign CPI and PPI readings for June and the move lower in oil prices the past few days. No matter which way they vote, Warsh's news conference today will be very closely watched. Michael McKee, Bloomberg Radio.
And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Karen Moscow.
I'm Nathan Hager, and this is Bloomberg.